we're going to start, Chief. So what I first want to get them to the right page. This is the new chief from EGP.
New and old.
Old recycled, yes.
Well, old antiques are worth a lot of money, so we'll consider you very valuable then, right? As I said, we have some juggling of the batting order tonight, so we're going to start with EGP. And I do want to make one note. I've heard through the grapevine that there was some concern that because of the outstanding letter that the volunteer fire departments addressed to me about certain issues they want to talk to me about or a lawsuit, that it somehow would reflect in their budgetary allocations recommended. In no way did I take the letter into account. I treated their budgets like I treat the budgets of any year. So I just wanted to clear that in case that's still out there. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the chief. And I think everybody knows you, but you may want to introduce yourself.
I shall. Good evening, Bob Drozinski, the Chief of East Great Plain, representing our membership and those people in the community we protect. I was chief back in the late 90s, worked at the police department for a bunch of years, not new to city or state government, worked at 2 different municipalities and also the state of Connecticut. So I got about 40 years behind me in state and local government. So I understand the role of everybody in the organization. So our budget submitted to the city manager and Mr. Pothier, both the capital budget and the line items are built around a common theme of firefighter safety and service delivery. We came up with some prioritization in the capital projects, which we can talk to towards the end, but some of the areas that we really feel that are important are to continue with the training for our members, physicals. I'm probably not going to be the first person that talks about it. You might have heard something from Chief Montoya already. The federal government is expanding the scope of physicals to rather than once a year going eyes, blood pressure, EKG, chest x-ray to once every 3 years throwing in major body organ ultrasounds. We're not sure what that is, that cancer prevention aspect. So we're not sure what impact that's going to have on the cost of our physicals. But speaking with Mr. Pothier, we were able to make an adjustment in the physical cost line item to try to accommodate for that. And that change, I believe, is going to be December, January-ish coming up. So we wanted to get out in front of that problem and be aware of what's going on. We've been fortunate that we've been able to take advantage of a grant we received to pay for some of the training we did with our thermal imaging camera, so that had zero impact on the city budget. There was also some allocation given by the state of Connecticut to the distressed cities for entry-level firefighter training. That saved us 5 or 6 students in the last 2 or 3 years going to Eastern Connecticut State Fire School. So again, we've been very fortunate to take advantage of those opportunities. All of the other line items are something we can certainly work with, and the city manager was more than reasonable in working with Josh to try to make the proper adjustments. Again, if we get over to, if there's any questions on the line items, I'd be prepared to speak to them now.
Go ahead, finish up. If
okay.
You brought some information. Let it not be interrupted.
Okay, thank you. For the capital budget, I don't believe there was any ranking in that grouping, but internally we talked about what our priorities were. And again, getting back to that theme of firefighter safety, the personal protective equipment for $42,000 request is the number one priority of all of our capital equipment. We have a need immediately for 12 to 15 sets. Each set, and I sent the quote to Mr. Pothier, is about $5,500. And Now, years ago, a certain department in Norwich always bought size 10 boots and size 46 coats. And if you didn't fit into them, you were going to have to fit into them. Now the PPE is much more custom tailored, and as odd-sized members come in, there needs to be adjustments made for that. So again, that immediate need is 12 to 15 sets to replace stuff that has hit the 10-year shelf life or user life, as well as accommodating for some odd-sized members where they don't all come in the same shapes and sizes. One of the other items to go with that PPE is a PPE dryer. Right now, we're turning our coats inside out and hanging them in the station, and 2-3 days later, that heavy quilted material will finally dry. The research shows us that that's probably not the best method for drying it. It leads to mildew buildup if you don't have enough air circulation. So there was a $8,000 request for the PPE dryer, kind of a big cabinet where you could hang 5 sets at a time. A hose replacement for $5,000. Each year, we test our hose to the national standards. This past year, that's exactly what we lost in hose testing. So that's kind of where we are for a guesstimate for what may fail in the upcoming year. One of the capital items that we looked at was a repair to a foundation. About 30 years ago, we put a temporary addition onto the back of one of our bays to accommodate our tanker. Concrete footing with concrete block on top of it. So 30 years later, we didn't realize it was going to be temporary for 30 years. Our concrete block is starting to get some wear and tear on that. So the city manager concurred, I believe, with Public Works engineer that a $20,000 allocation was in order for that project to be completed sometime next year. Moving down, next on the list is portable radio chargers. City has done a great deal of support in this area. One of the items that we have found that was left out from the initial procurement were individual radio chargers. Departments operate differently. Some people that are staffed 24/7 just swap their radio out at the end of 24 hours. We'll have 24 radios. So to have somebody go down there every 24 hours and swap a radio into the charger is not going to set us up for success. So by getting those new radio chargers, that's something that would keep us in a state of readiness and to be more of an automated fashion. So those are the really big the highlights and our top priorities from the capital area.
Chief, thank you. And again, thank you for stepping back into the leadership position. Appreciate it very much. Members of council, questions? Alderman Betancourt.
I'll just say, Bob, it's nice to have you. And I've been certainly pleased with what you've been, communicating to us regarding the collaboration and cooperation with other departments and stuff that your group is making. Those are always good things in my view. So I appreciate the effort. It's good to see.
Just trying to make things easier.
No, absolutely. I agree totally. But nice work as far as I'm concerned. Nice one.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, concerns? All set? Apologize. Alderman Hayes.
So I take up a lot of space, I'm sorry.
That's okay. At our last meeting, we had a discussion on the turnout gear. And so I'm looking at your capital budget. Let me get my lines here. So for a full set, you are asking for 12 full sets. Cost per set, $4,035.
So that was probably put in probably about November or so.
Okay.
I was speaking with Mr. Pothier. He said, gee, do you have a realistic or a today quote? And I got him that today quote of, I think it was like 52.
Okay.
42 for pants and boots.
Correct. And then by the time you get a pair of boots, $400 for a pair of boots. By the time you get a pair of gloves, it's another $80. The protective hoods are like $90. So you add the accessories to the pants and coat, that's what brings it up to that 52-ish.
Okay. So this is new, this is to replace some of the existing
Right.
turnout gear as well as purchase new?
Correct, so replace for those members that might have hit the manufacturer's recommendation and the standard 10-year usage, and any new members that may come in. We try to hand-me-down new, older stuff to newer members, so we can make sure that they're gonna work out, and both they're a fit for our organization and we're a fit for them. Before we jump in and buy somebody a brand-new set of PPE, but sometime in that first year during their training, they have to have something that's 100% compliant. So if you get somebody that's 5'3", they're not gonna fit into my stuff safely.
Okay. So my follow-up question may be to Josh. Going back to the proposed reallocation, so there for East Great Plains, it was being proposed, turnout gear, it doesn't say sets, but it says 43,962.91. So was that being proposed based on, is this 12 set request in the capital budget, or is this something separate?
In addition to, the chief indicated that highest priority was is getting the turnout gear. There were a number of sets behind in the replacement schedule.
So this is not, so this is an addition
To
to what's
what's in
in, so do we know?
Proposed 25 budget, yeah.
Okay, so do we know how many sets? Approximately?
Approximately,
Yes, just approximately.
like 10 sets or so.
Okay, so this is an additional 10 full sets. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any other concerns at this time, questions? Thank you very much, Chief.
Great, take care, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Looks like everybody is returned. I'm going to just go in the order of the budget book. So we did East Great Plains, so the next up would be Laurel Hill, page 89. Yeah. Let's make sure that my mic is on. Yeah. Okay, this is Laurel Hill. We take into account the priorities which we discussed with the chief, and it's a status quo budget from last year, with the exception of a few items which we increased. Chief, any explanation, or you want to just go for questions at this point?
I'll just go for questions.
Okay.
Members, any questions at this time? Alderwoman Hayes.
So if I can do the same question to you, into the capital budget on the turnout gear.
She says capital budget.
So you are asking for 25 sets of full turnout gear, right?
Yes.
Okay, so could you explain, is that a combination of replacing old as well as some new?
Yeah, so it's a combination of both. So gear only lasts about 10 years. We had to throw quite a few out. They hit the 10-year mark. We're also trying to get some of our active members second sets of gear, which we don't currently have. So we have to kind of go up a little bit just to get them the second sets that's required. If they do go to a fire, they have to clean it, they need a second set so we can continue to go to calls.
Okay, so some of this is new and some is a second set. Okay.
our budget decision was to phase this in over a couple of years, get the immediate frontline firefighters replaced.
So like, it looks like you funded half the
Yeah,
what was the
exactly.
request?
Yeah.
It's the only question I have.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? No? Alderman Betancourt?
The items, other than, the engine, of the items that weren't funded in capital, what would you view as the most important that weren't funded? I can read them off if you want.
I'll look at it. So probably the most urgent, we just replaced the UTV. The trailer is currently, it's seen better days.
But yeah, I remember that.
The wood has rotted out on the back, and the city garage is currently trying to figure out a way to keep it going. But it was just as old as the UTV when we got it. We got them both a week apart. So when one goes, the other one starts to go. So that would probably be the next thing that would be on the list to replace.
Okay, thanks.
Besides, obviously, the apparatus would be number one.
Thank you. Alderwoman Gould? Oh, I apologize. I saw you've been holding your glasses up. Mark, were you done?
Yeah, I'm good.
I
Well,
thought
that's
you
what I
were.
was waiting for. Mark didn't say that he
Oh,
was.
no,
Oh, no, yeah.
No, I didn't, I stopped talking generally, it's,
Alderman Gould?
Joe had a question.
No, go ahead. I'm easy to see past. Go
No,
right
go
ahead.
right ahead, please.
Someone.
Somebody
We're all
go.
here working together. Pro temp.
So, with regard to the turnout gear, how many members do you currently have?
43, I believe. We just took in 2 more, so it might be up to 45.
How many of those are certified firefighter 1 and can actually go in the building to fight fire?
I would have
Firefighter
to
1
get
or
the-
higher, I should say.
I would have to get the exact number,
Ballpark it.
27, 28?
So those would be the people that need a second set of gear, not all 43
No.
members.
We have some people who are just EMTs. They get a completely separate set of gear. It's a lot cheaper and can go a lot longer than 10.
Thank you. Last year, your projected responses total was 115 calls, 39 were mutual aid. Out of that 39, how many were automatic aid or mutual aid to other volunteer departments within the city, would you say?
I could get you the exact number.
Ballpark it again. Just
Automatic aid would probably be on the low end. 15 of those calls, maybe 10, 15 calls. Automatic aid, the rest would be what you would consider mutual aid.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the thing, that's part of the thing, is that it seems like you all have different definitions of what's mutual aid and mutual aid within the city, mutual aid outside of the city, and so on and so forth. I'm just trying to figure out how many times out of those 39 mutual aid calls are those responses to other districts in the city?
I would have to look I don't have that exact number on me currently. But automatic aid is considered when you get dispatched with the initial company automatically. So that would be a number variant off of that.
Yeah, right. So again, automatic aid and mutual aid within the city would be the number that I'm interested in. All right. And if you don't know that off the top of your head, I really meant to send you an email today to say, hey, can you come with this number? And
I can get you the numbers, I just don't have them currently.
and that's fine. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Alderwoman Gould?
Chief, thank you for being here tonight. I see in the capital budget, we're going to finally get the garage doors replaced.
Yes. Yeah, so we got funding last year for one door, and then 2 other doors started failing, so we had to put some money into those. So the plan is to get all the doors replaced this year rather than piecemeal them together over the next couple.
Critical for the doors to open.
One's struggling right now. Yeah.
And how old is your fire gear washer?
I actually got that through a grant before I became chief. I've been chief for 15 years, so we'll just say greater than 15 years.
Okay, and how old is your fire gear dryer?
We got it at the same time.
Okay, thank
We
you.
got that through our federal AFG grant. Back before it was, the money went other places, not to little departments. We also got a thermal imaging camera at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or concerns at this time? Thank you, Chief.
Okay, and the next order would be Arkham?
Nope,
Page
not yet.
91, he's not back yet? Okay. Okay, we'll skip Arkham. Taffel, page 93. Basically, we increased some crucial line items. We reduced a few, as you see, and I didn't mention it before, software pro rata share is in all the fire departments at the same amount, I believe, $42.50. So with that, I'll turn over to Chief Jenks. You want to go for questions, or you have?
Just last year, we hit a record for us of 900 responses, which is the most I've seen in my 36 years there. Over years, there's been a significant increase. We didn't hit that number during COVID, but we still had a continued uptick. Some of the things that we put into the capital budget, we understand a lot of them are physical grounds, the parking lot, it's got drainage issues and so on. Other than that, I'll take any questions you have. The budget was pretty cut and pretty forward.
Thank you. Members, questions? Alderwoman Hayes?
If you don't mind, I will ask you the same question this evening. The turnout gear that you requested in the capital budget, you requested for 10.
That was not funded. So in working with Josh in finance and through the city manager's office, we actually had some money that was unspent from previous year's capital budget. So we decided we'll be able to take a year off. Part of the problem that's coming out, that's coming down the road, is effective in 2025. If it passes, is the new OSHA 156 law, and that is OSHA and NFPA have gotten together and they've made different mandates. So everybody will have 2 sets of gear, everybody will have this, everybody will have that. Otherwise, you know, it'll be a potential problem. A lot of it has to do with the Cancer Act and protecting our firefighters a lot better. It's currently in the comment phase. Some of the things that are in it, it's 600 pages long, and they would be not so much detrimental to the volunteer companies or even the career department. There's some of that stuff in there is, unless you have a utopia fire department where you have an unlimited supply, you'll just never be able to meet some of the requirements that they have. Separate gear, room for gear, you know, things that the older stations don't have, either their career or volunteer. It just adds the cost. So we've got, we don't have any sets of gear in there this year.
I didn't hear the last part
We
of
don't
it.
have any turnout gear in capital.
Right, so, but do you currently have 2 sets for
For
each?
most.
For
For
most,
most of them.
but not
Yes,
for everyone?
Yes. The only ones that don't have it are the cadets or the ones that are going into Fire One.
Okay, but,
They're not making entry or anything like
They're not they are making the training. The issue is you know, when they can go all through class with gear that's substandard, but when they go for their live burns, they have to have the latest They have to be up to standard, up to the standard.
Right, so what I'm understanding is, so no one who needs to have the turnout gear, the second set, is not being denied?
No, we found
Okay.
money from previous years'
From previous
capital
years
budget
okay.
that during COVID, we were scheduled to buy some, we had some people leave. So we do have some of that extra money we're gonna recoup that way, so it'll help keep the cost down this year.
Okay, so this question, if, it may not be for you, it may be for Josh. So, in the reallocation of the proposed, capital improvement money there for TAFL, there's a replace kitchen suppression system. Now, if I understood what's in the capital budget, the total is 153,000. 108,227 from previous capital budget funding. But the request in the reallocation, Josh, I'm not sure, is that 51,661.57 part of the 108?
Yes.
Okay, so you're already anticipating having that be there because there was a difference?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I could follow and under.
So the station was built in 1969. At the time, it did not require a suppression system. In 2017, the fire marshal came in, did an inspection of the entire building, and that was where we were found to be lacking. So we've been trying to find funding. We did apply for a different grant. It didn't cover kitchens, it covers suppression systems, but it's kind of a requirement.
We knew, I wasn't trying to question that part, I was just trying to follow
No,
the
that's okay.
difference in the budget.
Yes.
Budgeting of the numbers, that's for me. Thank you.
Alderman McCart.
Certainly burning down the firehouse would be a bad thing. So, but with that said, you mentioned, obviously, you set a record this past year for calls, for call volume. How big an impact is Panema and other new construction in the village area caused for you?
So, not really a lot. I can give you some little definitive numbers, but it's kind of depending on the patient. We do end up with a lot of access calls for American. And the problem with that is you know, American has given them to Quantic Village, they have a code, and to the mill, they have a key fob. The problem is that gets them into the hallway. If the patient's down in their apartment or their room, they can't, American doesn't have access. They don't have the Knox box with a master key. So everything is computerized, so we have to go and we'll let them in and work with the ambulance or whatever's got to be done. We've got a couple of people that need a little more assistance than some of the others. That's what happens. You know, as people get older in age.
Yeah, we talked about this before. Is there anything we can do about that? I'm, you know, because I would love to try to take some of the pressure off, you know, if that's possible, so.
We're gonna wait and see how the new radio system works, the new paging system when it's out there. For stuff like that, when we're at work, they'll tone out the duty crew or they'll tone out just one officer. And instead of sending everybody out, we have, each officer in TAFL is assigned a duty night. And so it'll be that individual's responsibility to go up, we'll take care of the ambulance and stuff like that.
Okay, rather than the whole crew
We're
then.
gonna wait and see how if they're gonna be able to do some of this stuff first.
Okay, thank you. I'll touch base with you again on that later. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Alderwoman Gould.
Chief Jenks, thank you for being here tonight. How many members do you have presently?
38.
And you're welcome to the second busiest department. City manager has funded the SCBA Cascade system. Can you explain to the other members what that is?
So the SCBA Cascade system is what we fill our bottles with. Years back before we got one, which the one we have, we got probably about 25 years ago, we got it through a grant. We would have to call and either, I think Norwich had the only one, so you'd have to go wake them up in the middle of the night to fill our SCBA bottles. it's showing its age. It's getting to the point that, you know, when we have it serviced, we have quarterly air tests done, the guy actually, you know, the salesman, not the salesman, but the maintenance guy says, this is starting to show signs of wear on parts that they're not sure they're gonna be able to get replacement parts for. We ran into that with our vehicle extrication tools. Tools were good, but they passed the test, but if something went wrong, they weren't gonna be able to get the parts to replace it. So we look to replace that unit. That unit also fills the cascade system and has grade E air, which is what the divers use for when we fill the scuba tanks in the cascade system on the dive truck.
And explain what the lift bags are.
So the lift bags we've made some technological increases this year to make things a lot safer, over the last couple of years to make things safer. We've placed our underwater remote operating vehicle into service. The guys are still learning how to use the sonar with it. It's a good tool in the toolbox, and it'll actually help make it so that we don't have to expose the actual physical diver until we know we have something. The buildup of nitrogen on bounce dives and stuff like that can all cause some medical issues. The lift bags will make it easier for us to, in the event we have a car in the river, we have a person in the car, car's upside down, it will enable us to lift at least a 3,500 pound vehicle.
And how often is your dive team called out?
In the city, thankfully, we haven't been, other than to Norwich for the car where the guy jumped into the river. As part of the regional marine group, we've probably been out 8 or 10 times a year. It's a low frequency, extremely high risk type of response.
Thank you.
Thank you. President Pro Tem.
Hi, Chief. Again. So I'd like to circle back to two things. I'd like to circle back to the SCBA. I'm unclear on one thing. Is this the system that's on the truck, or is it a stationary system that's in the house?
It's in the building.
And it's showing its age, but it still functions at this time?
It does now. We have not had a catastrophic breakdown. We're just kind of crossing our fingers, hoping nothing happens.
And with regard to the range hood, just to give it a name, a short name, right? $153,000, that caught my attention. Now, is it true that the suppression system, whatever the case may be, would not be required if you only use the kitchen for in-house cooking, so to speak, for your members? In other words, if you didn't do public events?
So the way the standard reads is if you're doing basically, the hood system is fine now, as it reads. If we serve one meal out of it, whether it's a fundraising event, cook for the public, even cooking for ourselves, then it has to have the suppression system. The question to answer that is whether we're cooking for ourselves or we're cooking for the public, wouldn't we want our firefighters to be safe, not only out on the street, but also while they're standing by or doing anything else like that? It's a total revamp to bring it up to code, to standard. It's got some cold air intakes and, air makeup. But yeah, that's, it would be better, to protect the fire, in my opinion, it'd be better to protect the firefighters no matter what. Like I said, it is a city-owned building. I was shocked at the price tag myself, considerably. I thought it was gonna be probably around the 35 to 40. I did not expect it to be that high.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Beckcourt.
Do you got a fryer in there?
Huh?
Did you have a fryer in there?
No.
Okay.
No. back in 2015, when the town celebrated, the village celebrated its 150th anniversary, we did do fish and chips, but all of that stuff was done
And that was outside.
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll never have a fry later.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah. Well, I was wondering, just because having obviously looked into that kind of stuff in the past myself for our business, I'm certainly, I will tell you that if I installed the new system, it would have cost twice as much as the rest of the whole renovation. So I don't doubt it would come in like that.
Yeah, the cost of everything has gone up astronomical when my uncle put one in the dining room.
It was expensive anyway,
Yeah.
so, and just worse now.
My uncle had to put one in the diner on North Main Street 30 years ago. I think he paid like $3,500.
A long time ago, yeah. No. And it is a suppression system, so I mean, it's not like, you gotta pour foam on that thing, so. Not like,
The way the standard reads, it's anything with grease-laden paper, so if you're cooking 1 egg or bacon or hamburger.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Is Yantic here? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
No, we'll go for the Yantic, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, this is on page 95. And you'll note that we made some increases to his line items. We adjusted a few here and there. But overall, we funded or fully funded many of his line items. With that, Chief, if you have anything, opening statement. If not, then we'll just take questions.
Now, the biggest thing is we did a little work on, actually, we did 735 calls this past year, so we were in the 600, 650 range, so we had an uptick of calls this year, so that's a quick summary for us.
Members' questions? Alderwoman Gould.
Deputy Chief,
Yep.
congratulations. Thank you. How many members did we have at Antic?
I believe we're right at 48, Stacey.
Okay. And how's your PPE?
Pretty much the same position all the other departments are in. We put in for, I think maybe it's 12 sets we budgeted for. Again, the B set situation, we've got new members. We've had 6 new members in the past year, and we actually have 4 applicants that came in just this month now. So planning for the future.
And you also need some work to your SCBA equipment, the compressor.
I believe so, yeah, that's, again, showing its age as well. Nothing big right now, but it's getting up there.
And, going to finally fix the parking lot?
Parking lot has been a priority, and hopefully, we'd really like to get going on that, especially now that Hilton has signed on with the hotel next door. We'd like to get that done and, at least start proceeding to get it done. Get it out to bid and find out, where we stand on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And with all the,
I'm sorry. As you can see, we funded it from 2 years. There was
right.
money that was reserved from 21, 22, and the supplement, the 75, will be, for this year, should be able to cover the entire amount.
we had some historic flooding. Station suffer any damage?
Yes, it did in the basement. Again, we had to, the way the basement's constructed, the flood wasn't bad enough that we really only lost our carpet down in the basement. So that was our biggest loss to the station.
And what do you think the hail mill impact will have on your station, if anything?
Well, we're hopefully not too much. We're in the construction stage now. This is our biggest concern right now. That's why we've some standpipes the temporary standpipes are supposed to be getting installed very soon. And then once the fire marshal starts doing his weekly visits, we're going to tag along as well, just so we know where we are and everything, because they're actively building right now. We haven't been in there in a month or two, but fire marshal's supposed to get in there soon, and we'll, like I said, we'll be tagging along to find out. So our biggest concern will be during the construction stage. And then afterwards, it's, I guess, supposed to be a high-end boutique as well, so hopefully it'll be good clientele.
Nice to have neighbors.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other members? Alderwoman Hayes?
Good evening. So my question has to do with the proposed reallocation in the capital improvement fund. Could you, because I tried to look at it in the proposed capital budget for this year, could you explain what CCTV system upgrade?
I don't know too much about that. I know we put that in for a couple of years ago, and I think it's an upgrade to all this, on the present system that we have, and we have no internal cameras. So I think that, and I know there was gonna be like a Wi-Fi update and things like that. That's really all I can tell you on that.
Okay, so anticipated costs, no additional cost, 18,500, Josh? I don't see where,
So this one was, some funding was set aside in the fiscal year '23 capital budget, but after talking to Chief Hers, additional money was needed in order to actually get this job completed. The equipment cost more than originally anticipated.
do you know what the amount that was set aside in this year's budget?
No, I don't have that one.
Okay, so I can find it so add that. this
Fiscal
is
year
the-
20, the '23 budget, I can get
No,
that to you.
no, I can look it up, and so then add the 18, and then that will complete that.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, concerns? Pro Tem, please.
Thank you. Hey, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
It's good to see you. Congratulations on Deputy Chief. My first question is, how's Chief Ivers?
It's good. He was at the station today.
Good.
Seems to be in good spirits. He's getting around. I think he goes to breakfast every day, so that's a good thing. So he's getting out. He's doing well.
Just a quick question about the SCBA compressor. It's still working?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other concerns? Alderwoman Gould?
One other question. You're part of the dive team with Taffville,
Yeah, it is correct.
and you always go out together, or do you sometimes go separately?
No, as long as we're dispatched, we go as a team.
Okay, so 10 or so calls a year
Yeah,
out of,
It's not a lot, but they're, yeah,
well, thank goodness.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, concerns? Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
We'll go back to page 82, Norwich Fire. Chief?
Not Aqua.
John Occam's here.
Who's here? Occam?
Occam?
Yeah, Chief
Yeah.
Eckert.
Yeah, we'll do Occam then.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Spot in line, we move you tomorrow.
I rolled up on a rollover on the highway, so kind of got a little delayed.
Okay. We had about a $8,000 increase to this, and actually a little more, about $13,000. We reflected on some of the line items that were budgeted less and needed some more money at year end, and we adjusted accordingly. So with that, I'll turn it over to the chief, if he has any opening statement, or we'll just go to Q&A.
I'm good with Q&A.
Okay.
Members? Alderwoman Hayes?
So I will continue with the question on the turnout gear if you could explain in the capital budget, you're requesting 8 full sets. It looks like that is almost being fully funded, so slight decrease.
You're looking at the 5 sets, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I dropped down to the wrong person. Yes, 5 sets.
Correct. So 5 sets of gear. I have 2 that I'm putting on order from the current capital, which will close that amount out. And then these 5 will get me back up to speed before other sets of gear start expiring, and those need to be replaced.
So you have 2 for this year?
I
Into
have-
this,
I have 2 sets that I'm about to put on order to close out what I have in the capital currently. Correct.
okay, so then to Josh, they're in the reallocation proposed. For Occam, it's $305.80. Is that what the balance is for the 2 sets?
No. So, looking at old Occam Volunteer Fire capital improvement projects, only $305 was left over from, I don't know, like masks or some smaller project. So, in talking to the chief, we just recommended putting that towards turnout gear, because it's good, you're gonna be buying turnout gear for certain, so.
Okay, so help me understand. He's ordering 2 sets in this fiscal year. So the money is already in the capital budget for this year for the 2 sets that he needs?
Yes.
And then next year, it's 5 additional, it will be 5 new sets.
Yes.
So what's the $305.89 going to be used for? Or 80
Well,
cents?
possibly a pair of gloves.
Okay, I just,
It could be a helmet, it could be a pair of
Yeah.
boots, because those are averaging around $400, so it
okay.
could be any one of those things.
Okay, if you can understand my confusion as I
Yeah.
was going through, trying to compare what we were going to spend about $400 for. Okay, thank you.
Just a side note, the inflation on turnout gear is nothing short of scandalous, really. 5 years ago, average cost of turnout gear was what? In the 2,000 range, 2,500. So it's really doubled in 5 years. And it's the item that we fund the most, as you can see in the capital budget, and we're just not getting, as much unit cost as we used to, because we're of the doubling of the cost. So a lot of fire service expenditures have gone up a lot. Apparatus, almost anything in the fire service is more expensive than other departments for whatever reason it might be. I'm not sure of exactly why, but wanted to let you know that.
And then just across the board for the turnout gear, we're talking close to the 5,300 per set. Based on, because one of the things that was confusing was the various different unit costs, but I think that got straightened out earlier, saying with inflation, we're up to 5,200, 5,300, somewheres in that.
Yeah, I think in the amount funded in this capital budget, I used an average of $4,200 for pants and coat.
Is that considered a full set, or maybe
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to replace the helmets and the boots as frequently, right?
No,
Helmets are supposed to be every 10 years, just like the turnout coat and turnout pants. And then boots are supposed to be that 10-year mark as well, but they can withstand a little bit further if needed. But it also depends on interior, exterior. So, and we're outfitting interior firefighters. So you're supposed to stay within that 10-year time requirement.
So it is more than just a coat and pants for a full set?
Right, you're gonna have, when you're talking just turnout gear, it's coat and pants. When you're talking the full PPE that gets worn, you're talking helmet, gloves, boots, the hood, plus all of that. So you're looking at closer to 5,200 per set.
Okay, so, question for clarification, then, are we really talking PPE, full, when you're saying full set, versus just coat and pants?
If we're talking in terms of mine, it's just the coat and the pants.
Just the coat and pants? The other ones, do we know? I didn't understand this before, so, Josh, do you know we're talking the same thing?
Yeah, I used, 4,200 assuming coat and pants for,
All right.
Thank you. Other questions this time, concerns? Alderwoman Gould?
Chief,
evening.
thank you for being here tonight.
No problem.
Thank you for taking care of the problem on the turnpike.
Anytime.
How much hose are you going to be replacing?
So with this, the quote came back at anywhere between $300 to $500 per length. We're looking at about half of what we have. Oh, I thought it died on me. We're looking at about half. So we just did our hose testing. We lost 10 lengths. However, we also have a bunch of hose.
A little closer to.
I was gonna say. So we're coming up on a lot of hose that's about to be old and outdated, and so we're trying to get ahead of the curve before we have a big loss of hose.
And the cascade system that you're replacing, that's your in-house system?
Right, so we're actually not replacing, we're the only station currently without a cascade system.
Oh, so you're putting in a cascade?
We are gonna put in one.
Excellent.
So we do not have one on any of the apparatus or in the station currently.
So where have you been filling from?
We beg and borrow from other stations around us. We've gone to Taffville, we've gone to Yannick, and we've gone to Baltic. Just depends on who's available and who can fill them at the time.
Okay, much needed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. President Pro Tem, please.
I'd like to stay on that item for a moment. You say beg and borrow, but headquarters is open 24/7, 365, is it not?
It is.
And last year, you went on 25 fire calls. So I'm a little concerned about purchasing a system for 6 figures just because you're the only one that doesn't have one.
It's also a life safety thing, depends on where we go. So we did a couple calls up to Baltic, and after the calls from there at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, when we're coming back, Baltic may not have somebody that's qualified to refill their bottles, but we may need those bottles in the event that we have another call. Those calls may not also include Taffville or Yannick, and if it's middle of the night, Norwich may or may not be available to fill at that time. We'd have to wait till the next morning. So it's all about speed and necessity to get our bottles refilled, so that way, in the event that another call goes out, we're able to respond.
Okay, and I don't mean to badger you on this because what you're saying makes sense. It's just I'm balancing against that against, $100,000 plus capital expenditure. It's not personal. But I am concerned, and maybe you can't speak to this, maybe this is more for Josh and John, but the system that you're requesting is, sorry, I just lost my place, $105,000. The system that, but I'm sorry, you're not replacing that, you're buying, is $105,000. And the system that Taffville is replacing is keep my glasses handy, but 140 some odd $1,000, 143 and change. So I wouldn't expect you to know why the difference.
I believe these are different size systems. I don't know what's the capacity for the $105,000 one?
So it's a 4-stage system that can fill 3 bottles at a time. That's the one that I got a quote on. Now, whether it's the same brand, model, anything like that, I can't speak to that.
All right, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Thank you. Other questions, concerns? We're all set, Chief. Thank you for all your service, and that goes to everyone in the room, please.
Okay, we can now go back to Norwich Fire. Chiefs? Okay, just briefly, as you might recall, the budget for Norwich Fire is broken up into two areas. One is the Norwich Fire, which is on page 82, and the other is the district budget, which is on page, what page is that on?
127.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, yeah, 126, I'm sorry.
So we'll start with the main budget first. Chief?
All right, good evening. Microphone okay? Everybody good? I'll start with Norwich budget, the general fund. There were 5 items that I highlighted that were reduced from the requested amount. I'll go through the list in order. The first one was the regular employee line item, 51610. That was reduced, and the reduction is roughly the same amount for the deputy chief position that was requested and not approved. I would make a plea for the deputy chief position and the needs of the fire service, not just for Norwich Fire Department, but the whole of Norwich and the value there. Having recently filled the DTS position has been a great aid to myself, as well as a benefit to all departments. But deputy chief would further that goal of increasing both structural leadership within the Norwich Fire Department and structural capacity within the Norwich Fire Service. So that was the first item I had. The second one is the professional development. This is a constant battle because there's always the question of when we do training, required classes for promotions, for new hires, for other things. As a career department, our biggest challenge is staffing, not necessarily tuition or materials for the course or anything, but staffing and man hours. We've put staffing in our professional development for related accounting of hours, whether it's academy, fire officer 1, fire instructor 1, fire marshal requirements or other things. But that's always been cut from professional development and told that it needs to go in overtime, but it's never put in overtime either, so I'm kind of in a conundrum there. On top of that, just the staffing issues that aren't funded through professional development are the increased, just had a meeting this morning, the fire recruit program, the academy recruit program is going to be nearly $8,000 per student for the fall class. It's a slight increase. It's still a fantastic bargain. It's a 15-week excellent program, but that's just other consideration. My third item that I highlighted was equipment, furniture, and maintenance. Requested 120. That was proposed at 109. This is our largest non-manpower related line item, and it's also one that seems to get cut frequently. And it's also one that kind of gets used as a jack of all trades, if you will. Last year, we used our equipment maintenance and offset our grant, city co-share that we had received. So that took a big chunk out of equipment. So we did put some items on back burner for that. But again, it's a cut from the request. Since I just mentioned it, I'll say it. I think the city needs to have a line item in the general city budget for grants. We're not the only department that received grants, and we never know. We can't predict whether it's going to be approved or not. And at the last minute, when we hear about approval, to be asked to say, hey, come up with $40,000 city cost share, tell me what line item you out of, I just think that's a poor way to do business. We could do better by allocating a little bit citywide on an annual basis, and whether it's the police department, us, human services, anyone who gets a grant, they should have some assistance with that and not be required to take it out of a line item that they had already accounted for. The next item I had put was building repairs and maintenance. A slight cut in that, not a lot. The only thing I would say is that it's an item that I will take full ownership that I haven't focused on, and we have the second oldest firehouse in the state in Greenville, and it's in need of some work. So can probably absorb that, basically a $2,800 cut, but I would also like to look at some projects that we need around the station that we've been put off for. The last item that I had on this section was supplies, a modest cut, only $2,800 cut from that. But as you heard from some of the previous chiefs, inflation, what it is, everything across the board, EMS supplies to paper towels, everything has gone up. So to take a cut in supplies, there's no way to, without a crystal ball, to figure out accurately how that's going to impact us, but I would make a plea there. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything from my notes. Let me go back to the equipment line item. So I'll tie this into a capital request, and in my submission to Josh, I had made note of it to point it out. I had moved some hose purchasing equipment to cover damaged hose that failed testing, as well as hose that had aged out of its service life. I had moved because of the quantity of it. I'd moved that to capital. It was a little over $8,000. But I highlighted in my request to Josh that if by chance this isn't a capital item, it has to go back to equipment maintenance, which is where our hose usually falls under. It got cut from capital, and it didn't go back to equipment maintenance, and equipment maintenance was cut even further. So obviously hose is an essential component of firefighter duties. We have traditionally had roughly, not exactly, but roughly a spare engine's worth of hose, because it's not uncommon, especially in the wintertime or a junkyard fire or something like that, to lose a whole truck worth of hose to washing or damage or other things, and you have to replenish that. So I would just point out that the hose was cut from capital, but not reinstated into the equipment maintenance fund, and the equipment was further cut. So that is a big concern of mine. The other thing under equipment, and this maybe Josh can help me out with this one. First year that the departments were asked to break out software expenses, so we're learning curve for us. We had covered usually like the Central Square, the emergency reporting and things like that, dispatch-related software in equipment and maintenance. But we pulled that out for software. I'm going to highlight something that I didn't, unless I missed it, I didn't catch any of the other chiefs talk about. So emergency reporting is our RMS for fire use. That was purchased by ESO. ESO has met with us, given us a demo, and provided quotes. And I'm going to use some rough numbers here because I can't remember exactly. Last year, as a group, all 6 fire departments paid $19,000 annually for emergency reporting. To switch to ESO, the annual recurring fees are going to be about $33,000, and the one-time setup fees are going to be about another $31,000. I don't think any of us accounted for that in our budget, but we will be making that switch before the end of the year. We have to. We have 2 demos scheduled for next week with other vendors, but my information that I'm getting is that the sticker shock is going to be realized with every vendor out there. It's just the way it is. So I don't know how to address that in this budget. I went back and forth on whether I send the city manager and Josh another email and say, just give me 4 times my normal amount. But it's an unknown that we do have to plan for. And again, that's across the board. All 6 of us are going to bear that burden. The one thing that I found with 2 of the vendors so far is it's call volume based and staffing and apparatus based. So clearly the city at 2,600 calls a year plus is going to bear the heavy.
They charge you for licensing based on that?
Mm-hmm. Correct. So just as I read through my notes, that was one other thing I wanted to mention. So that's all the comments I had for the general fund budget. Do you want to take questions there, or want me to move through the others?
Would you prefer to do all at once or separate as you just discussed?
I think separate might be easier, then it keeps all of us fresh on whatever the topic at hand.
Okay, Mark.
We'll talk about the software thing, so something I know something about at least. Josh, I guess this is more for you. I'm sure you communicated with the chief about this. Have you haven't accounted for that in the distribution of the cost, software costs in the budget overall, have you?
No, this budget was assuming the $19,000 level. So, you know, if we have to go with that software vendor because the other ones are inferior or more expensive, then.
I mean, this particular product is more expensive. Is that where I'm at?
It is, but let me just say also, just to be clear, the company emergency reporting was purchased by ESO. The current system and services that we enjoy will not be available.
Right.
So we have to make a switch to someone.
So, I'm gonna say we probably have to deal with that, and better now than later.
Right, yeah, so go up 15,000 then, something like that?
That's just for NFT. You would have to, I know I included Bob Castronova on an email, and maybe one of the chiefs is capable of forwarding it to you right now. If not, I'll forward it to you in the morning.
Okay.
Had a spreadsheet with the breakdown, and again, this is just from the initial vendor quotes. Once we get the other two next week.
Are we talking about 30-something thousand per house, or 33,000 for you and the others are based on their call volume and stuff like that?
33,000 for the group, but then 31,000 for setup fees and training
Okay.
fees and other
So
fees
for the whole group, $64,000
for this year.
for this year. And what about the licensing fees on an annual basis? What are we dealing with that?
The recurring fees were roughly half that. So
Okay.
this one-time setup fees minus the discounts and some other things, and the recurring fees were fairly equal. They were between 31 and 33. I can't remember which
So that's
was
the
which.
annualized cost, okay.
Yep.
All right.
So probably about twice as much as we're used to paying.
All right. Oh, and Tim's coming up behind you here. I keep on forgetting my glasses. Some of that print in capitals looking pretty
The
small.
recurring fees for the group was 36,000, and the one-time fees for setup and switching over was 37,000.
All right.
So we're looking at, Josh, for this year, what is that, 73,000 plus, so call it 74, and then on a recurring base, 37, that we could account for planning.
Oh.
That's if we went with that vendor.
Yeah.
I will say that one of the other vendors that we have scheduled for a demo has a contract that was bid out through the Capital Region Council of Governments. So Norwich, as a member of that, we would be able to enjoy that pricing. I don't want to put the cart before the horse because I want to see the demos from each company.
You don't
all
know
of
what
us
that, you
choose.
don't know what that cost is yet, though, do you?
I have the price list. I don't
okay.
have it in front of me, but I do have the contract that they signed with Capital Region. So we could kind of project that one out based on rough numbers of call volume of the six of us combined. The other company, I don't know a price range on yet, and I don't know if I should say this out loud during a budget presentation, but it's not about price. It's about service and what's going to serve the needs of the six departments.
That's got to be first, but if you have different vendors, that's helpful with this competition, but, all right, so that's something we probably should deal with.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
what's the setup cost we understand on that one vendor, and you understand the annual cost. Can you lock that price in, or is that subject to change annually?
I would like to think we'd lock it in for the contract. I don't know the duration of the contract. Our previous vendor was annual. They are giving us a multi-agency discount, which was, I want to say, right around $3,500 a year, which was nice. It's nice savings. roughly 10%. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a first for all of us. Maybe some of the other chiefs have experience of using ESO with other departments, so maybe they know the contract years and the periodicity, but I do not.
Usually I will say they're usually annual. The stuff that I've contracted recently are all annual costs. And then, and they don't want to go longer than that because you don't know if they got to do a total software rebuild because of something, that cost may go up, so. But sometimes they'll offer you up to a 3-year, but that's unusual, so. Obviously, you got to check with them, so.
Yeah, and with a new vendor, that might be a risk for us doing a 3-year contract.
The tech rapidly changes.
It does. We have considerations of integration with CAD, with new CAD coming online. I think the biggest concern that, I won't speak for the group, but I have a sense that all of us are really concerned about the data migration and losing all our historical data, which is what happened when we went from Firehouse to emergency reporting. They told us that everything would migrate and we'd have everything, and we lost a substantial amount of data. And we all 6 of us use it a little bit differently. Some of us use different modules, but we use it for inventory, we use it for incidents, obviously, we use it for training records.
They hold the data off-site, right?
Pardon me?
They hold the data off-site, they hold the data, the vendor does? Yeah. I don't like that.
Think other questions, members? Pro Tem.
Thank you. Chief, just on there, the point you made, because you mentioned it, the deputy chief position, and I know that you're aware of this, the public should be aware of that the previous council, many of us were sitting up here, were on, approved that move, right? But it's a matter for collective bargaining, and the 2 sides just could not come to terms. So I won't speak for this council, but you did have the support of the council at the time, because that, from your management philosophy and how you want to run that department, you made a compelling argument. So I just wanted to say that to start off. Quickly, I want to talk about apparatus for a moment. So to put it in teacher terms, because you know my profession, right? A, B, C, D, F. The condition of Squad A right now today.
D.
And engine 2?
C minus.
Okay. And engine 3?
I'll give engine 3 a B.
And engine 4?
D.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I didn't quite hear the first ranking. That was a B?
For Squad A?
Yeah.
D as in Delta.
D as in Delta. Thank you.
As in almost failing.
Just for clarity. Okay. All right, thank you. Other members? Alderwoman Hayes.
So I will ask you the same question on the turnout gear. Forgive me, my page is trying to get, so you had requested turnout gear for 18 full sets. City managers basically cut that proposal in half. Can you explain the 18 full sets as what's that a combination of?
You guys are jumping ahead of me because now you guys are asking me capital questions. So I'll
I'm
go
sorry.
with. I'm easy.
No, okay, I
I'm
can
sorry.
wait.
I was going to speak to some of the capital items that I, again, had highlighted, but I'll answer your question.
Okay.
So we had requested 18 sets of gear, and we got cut to roughly 9. I will say that Josh's math does not match my math because most of our sets first off, we don't have a standard bid for turnout gear across the city, so we all vary a little bit. And we have also all interior firefighters, so ours are at the top tier, if you will, pricing-wise. I don't have the luxury of buying, lesser gear for EMTs or for fire police. So let me get that out of the way for starters. We had requested 18 because we've had a very high turnover, and we do provide everyone with 2 sets because of the call volume and the busyness. of fire load and the cancer prevention efforts that everyone should be doing. So 18 was a start. Let me also drag into this conversation the council decision to postpone the reallocation from past capital. So as I mentioned that evening when we talked about prioritizing balances of capital projects that we had, and I think collectively, not all of us, but most of us put that towards PPE. So that's 4 additional sets that I was anticipating on top of the 18 that were requested in this current budget, this upcoming budget. To have that cut less than half is very troublesome. There was comments earlier, some references made to the standards and the requirements. We no longer can push gear out to 16 years, 15 years because it's serviceable. 10 years is the cutoff. It's inspected more frequently. It's sent out for repairs. I think I even commented the other night during city council. I had 7 items that we sent out for repairs and 3 of them came back condemned. So it's, we all 6 of us need turnout gear. Norwich Fire needs, not because I'm biased and sitting here wearing the Norwich Fire Department badge, but I think are a little bit more extensive because of the turnover in personnel, the requirements, and I don't remember which one said it, but it's no longer a size 46 jacket and a large pants. They're custom fit. They have to be, to provide you the protection envelope. You don't want baggy clothes on that doesn't seal properly or anything like that. So to answer your question that you asked everyone else, it is a combination of replacement sets and new issue. The new issue sets are everything, boot to helmet, gloves, hood, jacket, pants. Some, not all, of the replacement sets are pants and jacket. Some are pants, jackets, and boots. I think boots are probably one of the, even though they have the same service life, 10 years, as the other PPE, they probably wear out the quickest, especially, if you're active and you spend a lot of time, crawling through debris and through fire scenes. So I don't know if that answers the question for you, ma'am.
It does. So you were looking for the 18 plus the 4, roughly 4, that in the reallocation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I will say, just because I had it in my notes, the city manager commented about the price increase across the board for fire service related items, and PPE is no exception to that. But also the other thing is the new standards. I mean, we used to send our guys to the academy, to the recruit program, with old gear out of our locker, and the academy doesn't allow that anymore. It has to be as if they were stepping off the truck on a fire scene. So I'll go through my capital items unless there were other questions on the Norwich General.
Gould has a question.
Good evening, Chief. Thank you for being here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we create battalion chiefs and do away with the deputy chief position many years ago?
But they didn't coincide. The deputy chief was, when was deputy chief? Maybe Chief Merchant can refresh my memory here. It wasn't a one-for-one trade. We didn't get rid of deputies to
We did create battalion chiefs to have leaders.
Duty shift commanders, yes. And in the process, we lost the admin support of a deputy chief.
My memory of that, and I was on the council then, was that when we did that, it was to make sure we had somebody that could assess the scene on a response immediately, that was, and obviously, you don't live in town. And anyway, whoever's back then, the deputy chief and the chief were the only response as far as an IC goes, and that was a real problem. So, correct. Yeah, so that was the sense for creating the whole battalion chief concept.
And operationally, after we eliminated the deputy chief positions, our shift commander was the captain, who was also Squad AX, and who could easily be backing up the nozzle man, stretching it a line, but having IC duties. So that was the primary safety and operational move to create an exterior command position, the battalion chief.
I believe at the time there was only one deputy, and previously in other budgets, there used to be 3 deputies with the chief. You go far back when I served on this council in the 80s, that was the standard. But over time, in budgets and decisions, there was a new chief and 1 deputy, and that was it. And so then the 4 battalion chief positions were created with the full support of all fire departments within the city, speaking on behalf of that decision at the time.
You're correct. There were 3 deputy chiefs when I started, and they worked on a rotating basis to cover evenings, holidays, and times when the chief was out of town. They were on call, they were marshals, they did all of that. Again, excuse the fuzzy memory, but I don't remember the time frame of when we eliminated them and went to the single deputy chief. I don't know if it was right after Chief Walsh was appointed, a couple of years afterwards. So that we ran with the single deputy chief, Chief Tessier initially, and then Chief Casey for a number of years. Eliminated that position, and then where we are currently with 4 shift commander battalion chiefs, no deputy.
Questions?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Okay, so 1,700 medical calls in a year. How do we take the pressure off of you from having to go to 1,700 medical calls?
There's no pressure. What do you mean? I'm not sure.
Alderman Betancourt said, Taffill's got a lot of medical calls. How do we take it? They all do. How do we take the pressure off? Why? There are certain calls that everybody needs to go to, but some of the others, is there a way to work with Bacchus Hospital to have you go to the calls that you're really needed on, and not all of these, I need a Band-Aid, my toe hurts, I scraped my knee.
I think the conversation earlier was regarding access calls, and we all get them. All departments get them. Some departments get them a little more, and I will say that Taffill probably gets a fair amount, probably close to what we do. There are different ways of doing that. I mean, you can't give, I don't know if Chief Westervelt's still standing behind me or not, but you can't give American access to the Knox box. But there are other ways. They can do it like you see the lock
Why
box.
couldn't you?
That's a good question. I don't know what the standard there is, but you could do alternatives. You can do like the realtor style lockbox. Just hangs on something and it's a combination. They do that at some properties. But to your question, ma'am, about how do we take the pressure off and relieve the calls, the system is in place. It's EMD by American. They do their best not to send us on those Band-Aid calls, but if it meets the criteria through EMD, through Emergency Medical Dispatch Protocol, they're going to start a fire service. That's the purpose of EMD.
You talk about the PPE. Next Monday, there's a new resolution to try to reallocate money for the much-needed PPE, for some of the departments. You talked about turnover of personnel, and that's why you need so much gear. Why are we having such a big turnover? Is there...
I think, we ask that question internally, and we look at it, and it happens, it goes in waves, cycles. I think when I started, there were a lot of senior guys, and, so they left around a cluster of retirements at around the same time. So let's use the past 3 months. I had a lieutenant retire, I had a firefighter retire, and I had a firefighter resign. So even though we were at full roster, which hasn't happened in a while, when we appointed those 2 new hires, and they're in the academy right now, I want to say around the week 8 or week 9 mark, we were full, and right off the bat, I have 3 vacancies. So, it's just a matter of timing in both hire dates and clusters. We try to we try to anticipate that, and there are more that are eligible that I'm trying to, again, forecast. I ask politely because I can't come out and say, hey, when are you leaving? But it's retirements. There was one resignation from a firefighter.
What was the cause of that,
Pardon me?
if you know?
The resignation, he had an offer he couldn't refuse.
Okay.
Good young man, good firefighter. Very disappointed to see him leave. I hired him 3 years ago, and he works in an outside company that gave him a very good offer that I understood, that he took for his benefit and for his family's sake.
Sure.
On top of that, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. The contract that we had last year, or excuse me, last cycle, ends the end of this month, or excuse me, the end of June, this fiscal year. And some people have cited that as their reason for leaving, because of survivor benefits and other things that, for 20 years they anticipated having, and now they could still have it, but it's going to cost them substantial money. So I will say that 2 of the retirements this year cited that specifically to me when I spoke with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Please continue.
So for the CCD, really the only thing on the CCD, because it's all contractual, CBA based, is the overtime, as you are well aware, is always overspent. As of February, we were at 115% of our overtime line item. And I anticipate that that's probably going to increase if it follows the same trend for the last quarter of the fiscal year, probably by another $45,000 or so. Again, some of that is related to training expenses. Some of it is related to FLSA compensation. And a good portion of the replacement and overtime costs are also related to the number of vacancies that we've had over the past year. So I don't know how to accurately predict that. I've had discussion with chiefs not only across the state, but even out of state. And I'm sure Josh, if he knew an accurate way, would happily share it with me so we could do a little better job. But there's no way of predicting, injuries. There's no way of predicting that unknown guy who's going to say, hey, I got a better offer, I'm going elsewhere. So it's a challenge.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
A 3-year average of costs and determine a shift relief factor.
Josh and I have talked about that in the past of using averages because, again, military time, comp time, the unknowns, I can't predict it, so let's just take an average.
It'll give you a closest estimation usually. I mean, that's what we did in my old agency usually, so you come up with a shift relief factor, so you got a position, you need 1.5 people to cover that, especially with a 24/7 position, so you need 1.5 FT equivalents or whatever to cover that, that post, if you will, whatever you want.
And that would help. It certainly put me a lot closer to budgeted versus actual at the end of the year than where we fall in the
It'll give
past
you a
few
number
years.
to work with. That's a more reasonable number, and
Yes,
help
sir.
account for, the ups and downs. So, just saying.
Thank you. So again, for CCD, it's pretty tied by CBA, so that was all I had for there. Pull up my emergency management one. Emergency management has traditionally been underspent. Again, I'll take the blame for that. It just, the priorities weren't such that we could focus a lot on that building. We're doing a lot over there now. We have some training props in there. We have some proposals with NPU. They want to do some stuff on property for their certification for training. And the building is dated and in need of a few items, nothing substantial, but a few items that, whether it's building repairs and maintenance or equipment. Again, because we have traditionally spent so little there, I think that most people would look at that and say, well, you don't need as much, but this coming year we may. So I had requested $3,000 and that got cut in half for equipment, furniture, and maintenance. and I requested 3,500 for building repairs and maintenance, and that went down to 2,000. Supplies was also cut in half, which again, traditionally, we're not even close to that, so I think that's all right. But with some projects and some needs and some, what is the word I'm looking for when you make something more energy efficient? Just some needs there with the lighting and some other things. Those two items specifically under emergency management, equipment and furniture maintenance, and building repairs and maintenance, I would ask for reconsideration. Questions on EM?
Well, I'd like to go back to just the CCD for 1 second and ask, has auto aid had an impact on the dollars spent on callbacks?
Yeah, I would say the auto aid policy has not. The majority of auto aid policies don't initiate a callback or a backfill. If it is a call that maybe started as auto aid, I'll use a structure fire, that would have elicited the backfill activation, whether it was auto aid or mutual aid. But the majority of auto aid calls, and I sent my numbers out to public safety. Don't know them off the top of my head. I wouldn't want to say last year it was around 39 calls given, not substantial. And of those 39, I would say, again, just off the top of my head, I can give you more accurate data if you want it. I would say maybe 3 were working fires that required backfill or coverage. And again, those would have required it under mutual aid, even if it wasn't an auto aid call. So not a lot. I mean, I think the numbers for last year were roughly like 1.3% of our calls were auto aid policy calls. And many of those were quick calls. We get there and it's, wasn't what it came in as, and we're turned around, or we do get there and turn around shortly thereafter. So small, very small percentage. Yeah, I wouldn't say it impact on overtime at all.
So is there a way to impact the dollars spent on callback by calling on the volunteers more to help reduce that cost?
Yes and no, because usually if we're doing that type of callback and backfill, it's at an incident of some significance, and most of the volunteers are there with us. And then I'm not going to turn around, but I don't know if Chief Jenks is in the room. I will cite also the ability to get coverage at headquarters and the importance there, and having equipment staffed with full crews, certified crews. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
So you don't call on them to?
No, I call on them, but I don't call on them for the sake of reducing overtime. And there are times, I'm transparent, you guys know that. There are times when we solicit for backfill and we don't get anyone. Or I'll ask for 6 guys to staff 2 pieces and I'll get 3. And we supplement. I mean, you hear it. You hear when we call for an engine or a truck or something at headquarters. And sometimes it's mixed crews. An engine from Yannick, an engine from NFD, and an aerial from wherever.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Members, other questions?
All right, so capital now. For capital, the biggest one obviously is Squad A. It is, I gave the ranking of a D. It's probably more likely a D minus. It has been requested every year that I have been chief. It was requested a couple years before I became chief. City Garage Fleet Maintenance has done an incredible job of keeping that apparatus on the road, as well as the others, not just ours, other departments as well. I didn't look back at the very first time I requested it, but if I again go by my fuzzy memory, I want to say it was about $760 was what the item was, the price for that, and we're at 1.2. We cannot continue to kick this down the road. It is the busiest engine across the whole of Norwich. It is multi-purpose with rescue and specialized equipment. It is called upon by NPU for numerous special operations assignments for capabilities, and there's further partnerships in the works. So it's a, it is the key apparatus in the city of Norwich, and it should be treated accordingly. Other things on the capital list, my vehicle was on there. I recently shared with Fleet Maintenance and Josh a quote. My vehicle is a 2012 hybrid with 140,000 miles on it. I've had some stalling issues that were battery related. Scranton Chevrolet gave us a quote of a little over $6,000 to replace that battery, and I'd still be in a 12-year-old car with 140,000 miles on it. I thought this was going to be resolved last night because when I pulled into my driveway, the front end was smoking and it was very hot. So City Garage picked the vehicle up at my house this morning on a flatbed and we're able to take care of it. But again, it is, it's a primary response vehicle for the chief of department, and it's 12 years old with 140,000 miles on it. I'll leave that at that. Again, we already talked about the turnout gear in capital, being reduced by roughly half, very challenging. And I talked about the hose that was cut from capital but not reapplied into the general fund equipment and maintenance.
Is that 5-inch hose?
It is a mixture. It was, man, I gotta remember my glasses too, but there were 11 lengths of 1 3/4, 5 lengths of 5-inch, and 2 lengths of 3-inch. So again, those were based on damaged hose or failed hose or just hose coming out of date from its life. So not a lot, combined 18 lengths overall. Like I said, the total price was a little over $8,000, but it wasn't approved in capital and it wasn't shifted back to equipment maintenance.
I will say, and you may remember this, Josh, that there was a time where we combined all the needs together and went out and bonded for, I remember it was 5-inch hose at the time. I don't know if that's something you want to go back and revisit. But,
It was an $800,000 bond.
Yeah, it was under that. So it was, it was like $500,000 or something like that, but.
Yeah, I think the bond that we did was for a CBA PAX. It was,
No, that was a different one. I'm talking, this was probably about 15 years ago.
I'll have to look back at that.
All right, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything in my notes. Talked about PPE, turnout gear, vehicles. The other cuts in capital, understood. I know you guys have to make some cuts, but those are the primary ones I'd be concerned with. The SCBA cylinders, I explained this to Josh. He and I talked about it. Had requested 9, got cut down to 6. I checked with the captain who has that collateral duty. We were trying to account for some bulk purchases that were made 15 years ago that we have cylinders expiring on, and some other things as well as some damage from training. But I think 6 is manageable. We can work with that number. So pending any questions.
Members, Pro Tem.
Thank you. So your vehicle, aside from the $6,000 battery issue, what other immediate problems does it have?
Well, if you had asked me that yesterday, I probably would have said none, but asking me today, I'd say the brakes in the front end, whatever the issues were there, totally out of the blue. I started smelling it on the highway, and I actually thought it was a truck that had just passed me, so I roll my windows down to clear the air, I roll my windows back up, and I'm still smelling it. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So it has some body rot, it has some electrical minor issues, but really the big thing is the hybrid system, and then just the wear and tear of a 12-year-old vehicle.
Yeah, only because I'm thinking, I mean, even if we spent $10,000 on it versus buying a new $65,000 vehicle and got another year out of it, right? That's more a John Raymond question than it is a Joe DeLucia question, but
Yes, and we've included John in the discussions and the emails back and forth with Josh and I. And, I shared my opinion that I'm not going to say that it's not worth putting $6,000 of battery into, but I wouldn't want it as a primary response vehicle, maybe a spare vehicle. We're very good stewards in our vehicles. You can go to headquarters and look at the fleet and understand that we pass them down and use them as long as we can. Our service truck is a 2007. That was the former battalion's ride. So when we got the new Tahoe in 2019, that became the service truck, which replaced a 1995 service truck. So we do a good job of making our vehicles last as long as we can. I think even with a new battery pack in a 2012 hybrid, it would be better served for us to be either a fire marshal vehicle or the backup vehicle, but not primary vehicle for me. Excuse me.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Members, questions? Alderwoman Gould?
What kind of special projects are you anticipating doing with NPU that you would be using Squad A?
They have asked us, so we've always been involved with them for confined space, for trench rescue, and those types of things. They have asked about partnering to further expand those duties, as well as, I'm trying to blank on what they call their certification training ground. I think because of the work that they're doing at the wastewater plant, which is where we do our confined space training and some other stuff, they need another venue, and they thought the emergency management property on McKinley Avenue was a great spot for both of our needs. So primarily confined space and trench rescue. They have requirements. They do unique work, and we've partnered with them in training. They were instrumental when we did our trench rescue class through the grant a couple years ago. Their crews were going through the evolutions with us. It was a very beneficial training.
Right, but they're not, but you've always had this assignment to do confined space or trench rescue with them. This is nothing new.
I think the trench rescue might be relatively new. The confined space we've done, probably not as in-depth as we are being asked to. And that's, I don't know if it's a sign of the time or everything around us. That's just not an NPU thing. We had a recent conversation with Lisbon because they wanted us to be their confined space team on a thing. And I'm like, first off, have you talked to Lisbon? Don't stay in your own district first. And I don't, maybe one of the Yannick chiefs knows there was a history there where there was an agreement as well. And I think they were just trying to meet a statutory requirement. But we've done it for Montville when they were retrofitting some of the stuff down there. We were the primary team for confined space.
Yeah, but that's only if you need a rescue.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Which is hopefully rare.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, hopefully rare. All right. So let's talk about Squad A.
Okay.
Could you move the specialized tools that are on Squad A to another truck? Or do you have them on another truck?
No, we don't have them on the other truck. We configured Squad A's compartments. The spec for a Squad A replacement is designed around some of the tools. It carries, I wish I had one of the captains here who could cite it a lot better than I did. A lot of the extrication and specialized rescue tools beyond what the others do, struts and other things. And if Chief Merchant wants to, he can come up and probably elaborate a lot better than I could. So the short answer is no, because of the specialized equipment.
So you cannot move it to another piece of apparatus?
When Squad A is out of service, we put it on the floor and we move it in the service truck if we need it,
Okay.
if that answers the question.
All right, so you have the ability to get it to some other place when Squad A is not in service?
I want to say most, but because I'm not on the line operational.
Yeah, I mean, some of the, is this on now?
You gotta get close to it, Scott.
Some of the equipment is part and parcel. There's some on a rescue truck. There's some on the service truck. There's some on Squad A. Squad A is not configured to hold the amount of equipment that is necessary for these types of rescues. It just isn't. A lot of this stuff has come about in the last 5 years. And we've acquired it through grants. Another bulk order just came in today. These are all battery-operated rescue tools, man-to-machine classes we've taken. So this may be, this vehicle is every tool possible to remove somebody from either a confined space, anything of that nature. So it's not the way it was when that truck was built in 2001. So.
Okay. And,
So as another example, I mean, the other departments have a rescue that carries a lot of that toolbox. We don't have that option.
so you can't move the equipment that's on that piece of apparatus right now could not go to another piece of apparatus.
No.
But when Squad A is out of service, you're taking equipment off of it, you're putting it on the floor.
Yep, at times.
Okay, so then how would, if you needed that piece of equipment and Squad A is at fleet maintenance, how does that piece of equipment get to where you need it then?
We have to coordinate it. It's deficient right from the go. Just like when truck one is out of service, we take equipment off, we put it on the floor, and if somebody's in the station, they'll respond with the service truck after they put it in it.
Okay, but there is a way to get that equipment someplace.
Yeah, it's just not as efficient.
Okay. And I know that Squad A is an engine. Why couldn't you, but Squad A does the bulk of your medical calls?
No,
No?
no, it does the bulk of the calls in the central district because it responds with other engines. So if you have a car fire, Squad A responds with engine 2 or engine 3.
All right, so what piece of apparatus is doing the bulk of your medical calls?
They're probably somewhat fairly split between the 3 engines, engine 2, engine 3, and Squad A. District-wise, and that's kind of how it was designed, response district-wise.
You know,
I don't look at the breakdown of EMS calls specifically. I mean, I do note in the monthly public safety report how many calls each engine responded on. I can tell you that Squad A had 90 calls for the month of March. I think engine 2 was in the 79 or 80 range, and then engine 3 was right around the same. Engine 4, the spare engine, was very low this month. It was 3, whereas last month I think it had 34 or something because it was in service a lot. But of those 90, to say how many are fire-related, medical-related, I'd have to run a report on that, but I can.
Okay, because $1 million is a lot of money to spend. Why couldn't you do this, your medical calls with a squad similar to what all of the volunteer departments have? Why wouldn't that work for you?
So there are, because we'd be going back in time basically, because that's how it was done when I started. If you recall Rescue 1, the old box rescue that ran out of Chestnut Street, that had a 2-person crew on it that responded on medical calls. And that would drive past Engine 6 or Engine 2, a company staffed with 3 firefighters to go to a medical call. And that just doesn't make sense in the provider viewpoint of providing the best service. So a centralized single point EMS response vehicle doesn't make sense in terms of providing the best service. Whether it be a 2-person or a 3-person EMS response vehicle, for Squad A, you know, as the chief mentioned, Squad A is the second engine due to all districts and the first engine due to downtown and its district. So on any fire-related call, it's going. If that's an EMS response vehicle, you've just lost, if it's a second to water supply, equipment, and everything else associated with an engine.
I mean, it's a primary engine, and if a new engine was ordered tomorrow, We're looking at 27 years old, 28 years by the time that new engine arrives to replace it. We still need that firefighting capability.
So you couldn't call to get help with auto aid or through mutual aid if you had a piece of apparatus that was just, or two pieces of apparatus for that matter, that were just designed to go on medical calls.
So we get help through automatic aid and mutual aid now, and it's still not enough. So if you took that engine away from us, we'd even be further behind the 8 ball.
Well, I'm talking about taking that away and replacing it with two, for a better word, a squad typical to the volunteer service.
But again, what you're missing is the firefighting capability of the primary engine of the city.
Right, but you add that on to auto aid or mutual aid to get another engine started from one of the closest departments to assist you?
We'll do basic math for it. Right now, on an auto aid call that's going to happen in the CCD, you're getting Squad A, Engine 2, Engine 3, an outside engine, Truck 1, and an outside aerial. So under what you're asking me, I think you're saying you would get Engine 2, Engine 3, an outside engine, an outside aerial, Truck 1, and some EMS response vehicle with no firefighting capabilities?
No, you wouldn't. Why would you need to take the EMS response vehicle? You could call another department to get help.
We call other departments now, and I'm saying it's not enough help. So to put us further in the hole by eliminating Squad A would be a extremely poor tactical and operational decision.
And what was the condition of Engine 4?
Engine 4 is a 1995, the former, well, it was a Squad A initially when it was purchased. I have asked John Raymond that question. You know, we retired Squad A 2001, and which is the best engine to have as a spare engine? A 1995 that surprisingly has been a pretty good workhorse, even when it's in backup role, or a 2001, which we've had problems with. So that's a fleet maintenance question. I can tell you that from a equipment storage user thing, the Squad's the better vehicle than the E1 is. But from a mechanical standpoint, John may say the E1's better. I don't know.
I don't know. I never asked.
I've asked and I still don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Members, other questions? John, I have a question for you. It's my understanding negotiations have not begun. Is that correct? For the new?
Next week,
Really? Oh,
start.
okay. So if someone had a question or concern about a contract now, what is proper discussion?
I would suggest that we have an executive session where all council people can express what their interests are in us approaching. I know what my goals are, but that would be fine to hear from council people about other concerns that they might have.
A number of people tonight have raised concerns about replacement and overtime costs. And I don't know if there's a clear answer. Chief, you and I have met twice in my office. We met with John in his office. I mean, the stipulations of the contract are what they are, but there's a minimum manning requirement there. And I just happen to believe, I'm speaking for myself, that's one of the drivers on replacement and overtime costs that we haven't talked about. I don't know that we can here, but you haven't entered negotiations, and that if you had, I wouldn't even started this discussion. That's why I asked you first.
Yeah, and you know, the first one or two are not crucial that council suggests, but if we want to have council give input, it would be in the next 2 or 3 weeks would be appropriate, something of that nature.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes,
Yeah,
Mark.
there's also a police contract right now to consider. And I think it'd be very worthwhile if we did schedule an executive session to discuss both those issues.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're finishing up with the police department. That is on page 77. Just a little overview. This is the city's largest expenditure department by quite a bit. That's not, I'm not saying that derogatorily or anything. It's a matter of fact. So it's always a difficult budget to look at. Decisions cost us money or save us money, but there's always the impact. How does it reflect on public safety? So we always try to balance expenditure control with how it impacts the spending of that money to maintain that level. You'll note that the budget in the police for proposed looks like it's gone down substantially, but the reason is that we've now budgeted separately the dispatch 911 center, but you'll see that on page 79. So if you wanted to look at it, you'd add back the number that's on that page, with the exception that we did, I think I mentioned it during my budget presentation, that it's one of the few new positions that we have requested of the council to consider is a PSAP supervisor for the department. And I'm very comfortable with that recommendation. I think that it will help administer the department at a lower level, so either lieutenant or captain doesn't have to get involved with every bit of minutia on that. I think it'll work well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over for the chief and the deputy. If you have any opening statement, that's fine. If you want to go straight to Q&A, that's okay too.
Just real quick, I just want to touch on what the city manager just mentioned. Kudos to the city manager and Josh for breaking out the dispatch function. It shows a key part, the PSAP is a key part of the operations and the general welfare of the city. So having that broken out kind of shows where the costs are, what they are. It really wasn't an accurate picture of the police department to have that, contained within our budget. So we're looking forward to that and moving that project forward. So first I'll go through the police, some cuts that I have some concerns with, cuts in request. And again, we are in the middle of contract negotiations, so a lot of the overtime and replacement costs are figured on this year's dollars. So there is a chance that that could be changed after the contract's settled.
Generally, we account for that in contingency, but I assume that hasn't changed.
Just throwing it out there, it's like the elephant in the room, we have to say it. And then professional development, now that was broken out for $10,000 to the dispatchers. It was $100,000 in previous years. We got cut to 85. This year we had to transfer money back over, probably be around 100,000 again. And we asked for 110. So currently we're short 15,000. So I'd like to see that restored. Training helps reduce liability, and is one of the few things we can do for morale to recognize high-performing officers, and it's required. So certain continuing education is required, so I'd ask that that be considered to be restored to the 110,000 that we asked for. Again, 85, probably 90 in this budget, and then keep the other dispatch budget at 10,000. Then getting to the dispatch center, I do want to talk briefly about the PSAP supervisor, why it's important to everybody. The radio systems, the technology of the radio systems are getting very, very high tech, and you have to really be involved and immersed in it. It's not fair to have a police officer who's came up through the ranks and might have no experience in radio system operation or dispatch center operation. Try to respond to people in the fire departments. We dispatch, we're the PSAP, that's Public Safety Answering Point. We receive the 911 calls from all of Norwich, and then we farm the medicals out to American, and we handle the police and fire calls and do the fire dispatching. So anytime there's issues with police, fire, or EMS, the captain usually gets tasked with it, or myself or the deputy, and this will take the load off and allow it to get someone who can answer the questions much more rapidly and efficiently of doing it. For years, we had people with dual, some fire experience and some previous dispatch experience in the police supervisor ranks. That's not currently happening right now, so as we retire out, you're gonna see a total lack of big picture awareness when it comes to emergency medical dispatching and things like that. So I would highly recommend that you keep that city manager's recommendation and keep that position in there. Moving to the capital, and then I'll take questions, but I just go over my concerns first. There was a crime scene mapping upgrade. We talked about that the other night. That was moved to the potential recapture of police capital funds. Buy one camera upgrade, MIS tells us that we should be able to get by this year with the warranty and not need that money until next year. For our body cameras, we just went through a significant upgrade to our body camera system, which is required by law. Active shooter response equipment was cut. That's concerning to me. It's a $35,000 expenditure. That would cover level 3A shields and level 3A helmets for the officers. Following the Uvalde shooting report that came out this year, it's now the gold standard in active shooters reports. It's 600 pages. It talks about level 3 shields and how it can stop rifle fire. Currently, we carry level 2 shields, which cannot stop rifle fire. And in most of your active shooter incidents, the people are carrying assault rifles or high-powered rifles, so that's definitely a concern. Coupled in that is some ladders, some breaching equipment, some forcible entry tools, so we don't have to, call the fire department and delay, so we can roll up with the equipment across several vehicles to get right in and take care of the situation before it gets out of hand. You're also going to see, we asked for 5 police cruisers. It got cut to 1. We're buying 6 right now, so we think we can get through with the 1. And there's a caution that the model year 2026 Ford's another redesign. And that means all the equipment that we just bought in 2022 is now non-compatible. Cars are creeping up in expense every year. We're not at the price of a fire truck yet, but you're looking at a police car for $54,000 when you added the installation and the equipment. And now, if this was back in the 70s, the cage we put in the car would have lasted 20 years. And now we're lucky if we get 2 cars out of it, and it's not cheap. So that's going to be a problem coming up, but I think we can deal with that. And other than that, that's my concerns right there. I think the other stuff we can get by without the year or pursue grants for. But again, the crime scene mapping, that's something we use quite frequently, and it puts a better case out to the public, to the courts, and then the active shooter response equipment for capital. But I'll take any questions.
Members? Pro Tem.
Thank you. So
just because we didn't get a chance to talk about it, your PSAP supervisor, civilian or sworn?
Civilian.
Okay, so would there be a sworn supervisor in the dispatch center at all times as well?
Yeah, there'd still be the shift commander for pursuit, not pursuit, prisoner handling. We're not doing anything like that. It's just the PSAP supervisor would handle scheduling, vacancies, filling vacancies. A lot of the load, the administrative load that's done right now by police officers, sometimes poorly. Sometimes we do a great job at it, but sometimes we don't know what we're doing. And, Americans got finer points of how we could be doing a better job that we're missing out on. So we're trying to get the experts to handle the expert stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Bancourt.
All right, same subject. How many dispatcher vacancies do you have right now?
3.
Do you think it's important to fill a PSAP supervisor? That's the priority?
Yes, it is a priority. We're testing right now for the 3, but as part of that, this budget is looking out for next year. So our first priority is to fill the 3 dispatch vacancies. That may actually be done by the time July 1st comes in this budget.
I'm gonna say I got a hard time stomaching that, the way things are, as far as that goes right now. I'm supportive of the concept, I am. Obviously, I've been doing it for a living for the last 14 years, so I have some idea. But the timing's not the greatest, so, in my opinion, just because of what you're dealing with right now. So until you can, you said are you testing for it right now?
We have a list now with 37 names on it.
All right.
So we're scheduling now. We started scheduling this week for the orals, and we'll move through the process as quick as possible. That should be done in the next 30 to 45 days.
All right, I just, personally, I just think it should be a priority to get the position. So, last time I checked, we're still at times working with one person in there, one qualified dispatcher, if I'm not mistaken. Am I wrong? So, I've always had a hard time dealing with that. That is just, not kosher, so to speak. Heck, at Pfizer, I have 2 people for
No,
crying out
I
loud. So-
agree. It's contractual, and again, I've never agreed with that. I think it should be 2 dispatchers a day, 24 hours a day. We got a dispatch position added in, so we can get to that goal, and this 11th one will help us fill the goals to get us where we need to be.
Why do we have, I know we had at least one retirement.
One retirement, then a person left, went to become a full-time teacher. So, but on a good positive side, she works weekends for us, and
Okay.
she worked days today, or evenings today. So she's still with us, but it's not in the full-time role.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Alderwoman Hayes.
So the question I have is, in the capital budget, there's the crime scene mapping upgrade that you talked about. What is the difference between that and in the proposed revised capital budget for this year, crime scene software?
It's the same thing. I know they trimmed some of the money out, but it's the same item. So
Okay.
that's not funded in this year's budget, and I think it wasn't funded with the intention that it would be funded in the recapture proposal.
Okay, so it's the same, it's
Same-
not,
same
not
approach.
two different?
Not 2 different things, no.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions, concerns at this time? Alderwoman Gould.
So I don't know if you heard me, but on next Monday, we're trying to get that money reallocated to you so that you can have that crime scene software package.
It's a total station. It's a Faro. It's a crime scene mapping software. Someday if you swing by, we'll do a demonstration for you. It maps the whole room using laser beams, and it actually fills it in with color. So if you have like an assault here and the body's there, you put it on the stand and it shoots the entire room instead of what would have been done with hours and hours of photographs and
Or Henry
measures
Lee.
and, so this is an upgrade to it to make it even easier to operate. So instead of having 2 or 3 people do it, it's really getting down to one person who can do it a lot quicker and faster. So, again, $25,000 expenditure, we'll probably save that, probably 2 or 3 times in overtime over the life of the equipment.
Because Henry Lee's retired.
Henry Lee's retired, so no more. But you should see it. I should bring it one time into public safety. A crime scene on Central Avenue, it filled in all the colors of the street, and it's all, they can tell the frequency of the color by the return, the beam, and it's definitely good. And like I said, when we went for the project a couple of years ago, the state is drawing back on the major squad response. And recently we had the homicide on Cedar Street, which was a very, very involved scene. Car was down on Schoolhouse Lane. The crime scene, the casings were up on Cedar Street, and we were tasked by the state's attorney's office to process that crime scene ourselves. So if we didn't have equipment like that, it would, first of all, our product would be not the best, and second of all, it would take everybody days instead of going to look for the suspects.
How soon will you have the 3 dispatcher vacancies filled?
We'll get going right on the list. We get them names and groups. So first 10 up. If we find 3, we stop. If we don't, we move on. Right now, we just put 2 officers into the police academy, so this is a perfect time between now and the next class, which is July, to get the dispatcher hires done.
So you're hoping in the next 90 days?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Chief, the equipment you just were describing, is that equipment that is going to be utilized statewide so it's consistent so that if information from that's gathered ends up in a court?
It ends up in a court, and it puts out, most of the crime, like major crimes squad has their version of the same thing, and it's all, the document it produces and the data it produces is readable across platforms. But most of the people use the vendor that we're using.
And this is not directly a budget question, but there's additional legislation proposed that, in my opinion, interferes in your ability for your department to do their job. Do you know the status of that? And it has to do with when you can and cannot stop a vehicle. They're expanding that outreach, which takes away your ability to operate.
It's the secondary motor vehicle stop statute. It's out there to ban what they call secondary motor vehicle stops, so equipment violations and some statutorial, registration issues and things like that. We're against it. Motor vehicle deaths are up through the roof, and traffic accidents and people's just general disregard for following the law. So anytime we're taking away abilities for police officers to interact with the public, that's a bad thing. Fentanyl's killing our citizens. There's no getting around it. Guns are killing our citizens. Guns and fentanyl get to places in cars. So having ways to stop less cars is not a good idea. The Connecticut police chiefs and most of the police chief associations are dead set against banning the secondary motor vehicle stops. Last week we had a case started down on Franklin Street. The person, I believe, had a improper car was unregistered. Officer stopped him, ended up getting a large amount of fentanyl and some other drugs out of the vehicle, and a wanted person. So that, off a registration violation. So we're against it, and hopefully it does not gain legs.
Thank you. Just very concerned about this same pattern. Members have questions about anything else? I guess we're all set. Thank you very much for waiting.
You want to hear about Spot A a little bit more, or are we good? What do you want? Spot A, you want to talk about Spot A a little bit more, or are we good?
No.
I was going to ask the chief how he felt about metallic gray. You want to work something out with the...
It was nice. Stainless steel metallic. But seriously, back to the car. The cars are going through the roof, and I wish someone would come up with either a purpose-built police car or stop cheating equipment. It's like the firefighters are dealing with the manufacturers. The people who write the standards that say the fire gear has to get replaced in 10 years are the manufacturers. And now you have the equipment manufacturers in cahoots with the car builders to change things so none of our equipment turns over. It just becomes junk.
Can we put it on eBay?
Well, that actually, but the person who's driving like the 2016 car probably already found something to use, but it's sad.
Bring back the old Crown.
Could you actually prove,
Good. Caprice Classics are even better.
I'll talk to you later, I don't want to ask this question.
I mean, there was the Ford Interceptor for 20 years that didn't change, really, and it was easy to plan with that, and it cost 2/3 of what, you can't get it now.
And another thing, it's, now we gotta buy model year 1 of these 26 Ford Police Interceptors, and if you ever buy model year 1, don't.
Yeah.
It's horrible. There's bugs and there's just recalls.
Are you almost all SUVs now, or?
This will be these cars coming in will pretty much be the death knell to sedans, although the officers will not want to see them go. But, the sedans retired probably in 2018. So the sedans are going away. They were good. They were good cars, but, and there's nothing really comparable to that size.
Right.
Because it's tough, you get a person my size, stuff them into the back of a Dodge Charger, just doesn't work well.
Yeah, it's not the utility of that.
Plus, you
auto.
move the front seats back anyway with those, so.
Yeah, the front seats come back because the steering wheel's up right here, and you're trying to get
So there's not a lot of passenger room in those. All right.
Thank you.
Let me just say that Thursday, we have the city clerk, city managers, mayor, human resources, finance, treasurer, and assessor. That's at 6. And then at 7:30, we're opening up the public hearing on the proposed budget by the manager. So that's all on April 11th. Then the council meeting on the May 6th, the council will consider adoption of the preliminary council budget. Second public hearing on May 13th, it's a Monday. And then either the first week in June or the second week in June, set the mill rate and budget. So next little less than 2 months. Thank you for this evening.
Thank you. I might suggest if members have specific questions about any of those budgets, it's okay to ask before the meeting on Thursday. Submit them to the city manager, maybe you can get your answer. That sounds like a challenging hour and a half to get through, then open it up to the public.